It's the most wonderful time of the year. Y'all know it is. There's no better time in all of sports than right now, opening weekend of college football and then the NFL. I got next. We are back at it again. AG and John Ryan. Let's get it. Let's get it. Y'all ready?
What's up, everybody? Football is back.
Yes, indeed.
And you know what that means? That means we brought John Ryan back as well. As always, our professional expert, sports gambler. He's going to give us some good tips and advice for this weekend, opening weekend of college football. I want to get right to it, though, because you put out some great content earlier today, John. Penn State, Purdue. Chad, shut up. You know I wanted to talk about him, so I'm bringing him up first. We'll get to LSU. Relax, all right? But you brought up a very good point about how you're going to put up 50% of the money that you're going to put on that game before the game starts. Another 50% if they go down, because you'll obviously get some better money for it, a better bang for your buck if they go down first. You want to just explain your strategy and the numbers that you use behind it, the stats?
Yeah, sure. The way it works with live in-game betting, it comes from my Wall Street days of trading in the pits when you used to go like this with the hand signals and yell and scream at everybody. But although I like Penn State to win this game comfortably, I want Purdue to score first. And I'm my one caution with this play is Purdue has the quarterback that is extraordinarily good. Now you can counter that by saying Sean Clifford has 6 years of experience in the program, 4 as a starting quarterback in the Big Ten. That's pretty huge too. But this kid from Purdue threw for 534 yards and 5 touchdowns against Tennessee in last year's Music City Bowl and had a good spring. So I'm literally hoping that Purdue scores first in the first quarter, goes up 7-0. I will then take the 50% I have in my pocket for my regular size bet, and I'll complete the bet at that time. I'm anticipating at about pick'em. Penn State's favored by 3 right now. Depends on how early Purdue scores. If they score in that first drive, it may only go down to Penn State -1. But I think pick'em is reasonable at that point, and then I'll be very happy with that. And if it's -1, I might even just play the money line for that second 50%.
Yeah. So all right. So the question I had was, now you only played 50% before the game pre-flop. Now, if Penn State comes out and scores first, gets a turnover on the next possession, now they're driving to possibly go up 14-0. Are you just sitting on that 50% for maybe later in the day, another game later in the night, or next week, or are you sitting on that, or are you going to try to grab them as soon as you can if they strike first?
Yeah, I'm definitely sitting on it, Adam. I've learned over 28 years of doing this, you never force a bet. You never say, oh boy, I think this is going to happen. And, you just say, well, what the heck? I'm up $200 for the weekend. I'm going to take 100 of it and throw it, into the wind. You have to resist that temptation. I know it's a lot of fun to do, but it's not a lot of fun to do when you lose. So if I don't get the other 50%, I don't. But that also implies, Adam and Chad, that I'm winning the first bet. And that happens a lot in the NBA. You might miss it, but that also implies that you're winning your first 50%. So that's not the end of the world either.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. That's the answer I wanted to hear. That's definitely what I would do, but I was making sure that you were following that as well. And then you had a couple stats about why that was your edge for this week. I don't know them off the top of my head, but you want to get into that? Why we're betting Penn State to cover? Because I'm going to take them too.
It's the NCAA football angle of the day for week 1. I do these videos every single day for all the sports. Been doing it for Major League Baseball every single day. And it's a quick hitting 2-minute video that gives you some of the nuts and bolts of the analytics behind the reason why I went to the window to make a bet. And in this case, you're going to bet on favorites between 3 and 9.5 points in the first 4 weeks of the season. The favorite closed out the previous season with 2 or more losses, and the opponent closed out their season with 3 or more wins. 32-10 against the spread, 76% winners over the last 30 seasons. And that obviously supports Penn State. Now, one caveat, say the line goes to 2.5. That doesn't change my bet. The analytics only support what my models are projecting. And if it goes to 2.5, it goes to 2.5. It disqualifies this angle, but it doesn't mean that I don't like it any less.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I like it too, because as you were making your points about the Purdue quarterback as well, we've been hearing a lot of good things all spring, but their rushing game is pretty terrible. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they don't even try to run the ball much, and they're not very good when they do. So I think Penn State still can hang around, even if he has a lights out performance, and it's only 3.5. You would think you would like it better at 2.5, obviously, because of the field goal game, but I saw a stat somewhere throughout the summer. I can't put my thumb on where it was or who said it, but it actually doesn't make that much of a difference when you go from 2.5 to 3.5. Actually, the 3.5 wins more is what I've seen when the line moves like that. So I'm not worried about it. I think I'm going to go Penn State as well. That's definitely going to be one of my top picks because I love those angles that you put out. I mean, over the last 30 years, you can't beat that. It's at 76%. Even if we lose this week, it was a good bet to take, good value there.
I think so. And one last thing, guys, is watch certain plays when Purdue has the ball, especially in the first half, because I think this will, maybe in the first quarter, it'll tell the tale. Purdue has experience on the offensive line, with the exception of the right guard, who is a redshirt freshman. Not taking anything away from him, not saying he's bad, terrible, whatever, but the lack of experience against a defense like Penn State's going to bring. Penn State's only returning 4 defensive starters, but they're becoming a program that reloads, not reloads like Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia, but they're reloading Big Ten style, and it's pretty impressive. So when they're on the left side of the field, they are left, hash. That right guard is going to be exposed to, I think, a big-time, multiple linebacker corner blitz on every single throwing situation that Purdue finds themselves on that side of the field. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that works, because Purdue's going to have to keep that running back in to pick up that blitz. I mean, you can't let the right guard, the right tackle can't give up his man to help the right guard in the interior. That's not going to work. So I think that's where Penn State will look to put pressure on the quarterback.
Sounds good. I hope so. I hope you're right. I hope we see that, because I'm going to bet it, like I said. Yeah. It's 100%. Chad, let's get you in here. So we got our Pick'em challenge that we're doing this year. Last year we were doing 3 spreads a week, everybody just picking it, but we actually set up something with fantasy on Yahoo. So Chad, take it away. The description is in the link is in the description to join, by the way.
Correct. Yeah, thank you for putting that in there, AG. So as you can see, we already got me, we got AG, and we got Joe Flation. This is actually Kamar Daniel. He's already got his picks in here. So what we're looking at, we've got just a handful of games that the Yahoo folks have chosen that we are going to be using, and that's every week they just pick like interesting games. We were talking with AG about this before the show. I really prefer this model to that of the like the standard top 25 games, because a lot of times you get like it'll be Alabama versus the Citadel, and it's like a 75-point game, and we're not picking these against the spread because I don't really care enough to like go dig into every single one of these games by the spread. I usually like to target the games where I'm like, ooh, that looks delicious. Let me go after that spread. And so what we're doing with these are just all pick 'em games. And so, yeah, you're going to have some of these like this Michigan State, Western Michigan. That's, a blowout in the making. For whatever reason, Texas A&M and Sam Houston there's no line. I think it's too big that they didn't want to put a number on it because I don't see how Sam Houston stays in that game. But essentially what we are going to be doing, so I've already put my picks in, and this is how it's going to look. So you go in and sign up. Like I said, the link is in the description, or like AG said anyway. And you'll just go down and you'll just pick your games as you go. And then down at the bottom, it's going to ask you for some tiebreakers, and it's the scores of some prominent games. In this week's case, it's going to be Ohio State, Notre Dame. I've got that one 37-28 Ohio State. I think both of those teams are going to come out swinging and trying to put up numbers. And then I have Georgia beating Oregon pretty handily by 3 touchdowns, 38-17. And so those are my 2 tiebreakers. And then you have a second tiebreaker, which is going to be who scores the most points and who scores the fewest points this week. So that's the model that we're going to go. But it'll be really cool because we'll be able to, if I go back here, we'll be able to track throughout the season as we go all of the different, steps along the way and kind of keep track of the standings. So it'll be a little easier to stay on top of than what we were doing last year, where we were having to go through the Twitter conversations and everything to try to figure out whose picks, who had picked who. I still like the idea of picking 3 games that I like the spread on and betting that way. But for something like this, to do a contest, we wanted to do something that would attract as many people and be as simple as possible for people to just kind of go through, make their picks, and go with it. So, and I like that.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, everybody jump in on that.
Yeah, I like the fact that LSU not being in the top 25 yet, they're on that list. So I get to pick that FSU LSU game, which it's going to be in New Orleans. Like
I hear you.
I'm here to tell you, because John and I talked about this when LSU had first hired Brian Kelly. I wasn't a big fan, but I've really been impressed with how he has moved in the transfer portal and how he started to recruit in the state for the upcoming recruiting class for 2023. It's looking a lot better than I expected, and so I have a little bit of hope. And for this season in particular, I'm just looking at. A lot of times you have to make a leap and to kind of surprise people, you have to have some key players, some really big talent at some key positions. Left tackle Will Campbell, he's the truth. He's an incoming freshman. He's a monster and going right into that starting spot at left tackle. Mason Smith coming back again, plugging up the middle on defense. And then you have at wide receiver one of the best, if not the best in the country, Keishon Butte. And then the little wild card that kind of gets thrown into this is with Miles Brennan exiting football for life now, Jaden Daniels, the transfer from Arizona State, I've been really impressed with how he has fit in. And he's a guy who came into Arizona State with a lot of promise, had a really good first year at the helm as the starter, and came upon a little hard times last year, but I think there's some real promise. A change of scenery, I think, helps him out. What do you think, John? I think you're muted. Wait, you're muted.
You're on mute, John.
John, you're muted.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry about that.
There you go. All right.
I didn't know I hit it.
Start over again.
No worries.
Okay, so I actually I agree with everything you said, and I have a question for you. I understand this game is at the Superdome, right?
Yes. Yep.
Does that change your fervor for LSU in any way, shape, or form to bet on them?
I mean, so I would take LSU minus the 3 in this game, playing in the Superdome in that game. And I think, like I said, I think there are a lot of question marks about this team. There may be some depth issues, but I don't think you're going to really see that in this particular game. I think that's probably going to be the sort of thing that's going to bear itself out over the course of the season when you start getting some guys dinged up in that SEC play. So it could be a 3 or 4 loss team over the course of the season. But I think this game in particular, I think it sets up for LSU to win by a touchdown or 2.
And I agree with you. I think Florida State, with all the hype of this, is going to be a better season type of thing, is overvalued them. And LSU is one of those SEC teams now that people literally forgot about, because Alabama and Georgia are just dominating. But LSU is that type of team that can upset either one of those teams on any given Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, and generally speaking, LSU is one of those reload teams too. Like it's kind of crazy when you think about it. But if LSU were playing in a different conference and they weren't playing in the West Division with Alabama every year, they wouldn't be looked at as like this, this little brother that they I think a lot of people look at them as, because Alabama has been so dominant. If you put Ohio State in the SEC West, Ohio State would look a lot like LSU looks. And I think that's one of those things that just gets lost in all this. Ohio State gets to go and dominate the Big Ten because there hasn't really been anybody else. Michigan has finally started to challenge them, but before that, I mean, it was Ohio State, and that's just, I mean, Iowa, Wisconsin, like they're not on that same level in terms of like recruiting. And you look at the lists of the top teams in terms of putting players into the NFL. Nobody else in the Big Ten comes close to Ohio State and Michigan. So finally Michigan, putting that together on the college football field has been interesting to watch. But yeah, so I think I think you're right. I think that they're now maybe I'm a homer, and maybe this is just my bias coming out. But I feel excited about this game and about this team this year. I think they have a chance to. They're not going to win the SEC. They're definitely not going to win the West. But they have, because Alabama and Texas A&M, that's going to be a tough duo to overcome. Although I do think Texas A&M is still probably a year or two away. There's a lot of hype around them, but a lot of that talent that they brought in is true freshman talent. So that recruiting class, we'll see the fruits of it in a couple of years. But they're still going to be tough, because they were tough last year.
I will say this, though, and Adam will like hearing this about, you mentioned Penn State. I personally think they have advanced past Michigan in terms of the recruiting, and
I was just trying to dig in on AG, see if I could get him riled up a little bit. Just didn't even mention them.
Well, I was gonna say, I just wanted the record to show real quick that before we went live here, I was like, all right, we're gonna go through all the games, and since I know you want to talk about LSU, but the LSU game is on Sunday, the other games are on Saturday and Thursday, so we're gonna talk about LSU last. And he goes, yeah, sure. And then, as you can see, we're one game in, and we did the whole LSU conversation. I just want the record to show.
Well, your tag is men of order, so everything should go in consecutive order, right? Isn't that what that means?
Hey, John, I thought it was logical. Chad agreed at first, and then I guess he couldn't resist. I don't know. I mean, I told him straight up, I'm going with Penn State first, and we'll do LSU last. I thought we were going to save the best for last, as Chad would say, and then he just found a way to get them in there. But you did mention Oregon and Georgia while you were talking about the pick'em. Those are the two, that and Notre Dame and Ohio State. Those are the two other games we were going to talk about, and those are the ones that you used as the tiebreakers. I agree with you. I think Georgia is going to take care of Oregon. I think they're going to handle business. John, what do you think? Are you playing this game?
I am. I did want to just back up 1 second with Penn State, because I think this is significant news.
Go for it.
Is the freshman 5-star quarterback that turned down Michigan, Notre Dame, and Ohio State, Drew Aller, I think is his correct pronunciation. He's 6'5", 242, and prototypical quarterback that is the future of Penn State. And he really is the real deal. And they announced today that he's the backup to Clifford, which I thought was really kind of amazing. So I just throw that out there that, if Clifford, he's a redshirt senior, 6-year guy. So I doubt whether he'll get benched, but if he gets dinged and this kid comes in, that's going to be hard for defenses to adjust to this. He has a rifle. I mean, it's a howitzer. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out. Now, the other game that you were talking about, I actually just forgot which game it was.
Georgia, Oregon at Georgia.
Well, there, I think that this is another one of those games where you're laying a lot of wood, 17.5 points, last I checked. And I just think Georgia steamrolls them. I don't see any other way to handicap the game. It is an opportunity with that live in game. There should be quite a bit of scoring in the game. So Oregon will score. It's not like Georgia's defense of last year. They're still going to be very good. But yards per point ratio, they put up some historically best numbers in SEC history last year, did the Georgia Bulldogs. But this game, Oregon will score, so you can use the in-game then to not bet 17.5 pre-flop, do 50%, and then see how the game goes. And if you get down to near 10, 11 points with Oregon possibly actually ahead early on, take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to take care of them too. But you're saying Oregon's going to come out and score too. So should we be looking at the over 53.5 right now on FanDuel? I feel like if Oregon's going to come out and score,
in my opinion, I don't really have a strong feel, to go to the window with it. But
yeah,
I think, if you're looking at it, you got to take the over. I mean, goodness sake, Georgia could score 53 on their own merit.
Exactly. Yep. So I think I might play that just off of the strength of that. But yeah, definitely. You got anything, Chad, for that game? I mean, you have them winning by 3, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
I haven't won. Yeah, by 3 touchdowns. Yeah. I don't know about Oregon scoring. I know Oregon should score on people. I don't know. this Georgia defense is no
Yeah.
joke. I mean, like they were. You talked about it last year, John. Like you had what were the metrics that you had? Like they were like elite, like one of the best ever. And I know it's not the same exact group from last season, but they didn't lose that much. And they had one of the best in terms of like yards per point that they had to generate to create points. So I don't know. It's going to be very tough. And the one thing that people often, I think, overlook when they look at some of these Pac-12 and even some of the Big Ten schools, they're the athletes in the SEC, the speed, the makeup, the big plays just aren't there like they are in like you can't do as Oregon, you can't do against a Georgia defense with the speed that they have on the back end and with the pressure that they put on the quarterback. Those big plays aren't there like they are against an Oregon State or a USC or a Washington State or somebody like that. It's just a different level of everybody on the field is running, a 4.5 or lower 40.
And they're 240 to 260 pounds running 4.4s.
Right.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
All right. So, all right. Well, I guess the biggest game of the weekend, of opening weekend here in college football, is number 5 Notre Dame traveling to Ohio State, who's ranked number 2, just
Why
under
is Notre Dame
Alabama.
number 5 though?
That is a great question. If you want to start there, I'm down to start there because I was wondering the same thing. They just lost their coach, obviously to Chad's LSU. A lot of guys left as well. They transferred.
Yeah.
But I guess they got a strong crew coming in. John, can you offer any insight on why Notre Dame would be number 5 coming into the season?
Hype. That's why.
It's 4 letters, HYPE. Hype. Every year it's the same story.
Notre Dame every year.
It's scary there saying 4 letters because a lot of 4-letter words that I definitely cannot say. But at any rate, Notre Dame is in the same boat they were in last year, and I sometimes feel almost a little sympathetic with the players and the coaching staff because there's so much pressure and expectations are so unrealistically high in most of the years for Notre Dame that if they don't even come close to those expectations, then it's just an absolute failure. And that for that it's a shame. But Ohio State is just loaded for bear. Period. They are so deep at every single position. Not that I want to see anybody get hurt, but they can plug and play on even little nicks during a game, and they won't lose a step. And it's 17 and a half. It was 15 and a half earlier on. I was on a show earlier this week with a couple guys and bantering about the 15 and a half, and the guy wanted Notre Dame. And I said, well, I'll back my truck up. You just tell me how much. And I said, the line's going to go higher. And for once I was right.
It is 17 and a half
right now.
It may not stop
here either. This thing gets a little bit of momentum, and then it grabs the public attention. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up at 20 by game time. I mean, it could easily move that much. I think the smart money was in early, and now it's now it becomes a question of whether the pros that bet Ohio State early are going to buy it back. That's the only thing that would keep it from probably going to 20.
Right.
There's some big numbers now. 16 and 17 are all available. For the middle. Those are pretty big numbers to have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is just an absolute train wreck. You come up with a score, and I'll just say, yeah, that's possible.
So I have this theory. I have this theory about these opening weekend games that I think there's a lot of this stuff that is, because these games are scheduled years in advance. Most of the time it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance, and it's typically at least a year in advance that these games are scheduled. These matchups are scheduled. So when you go into the season, because I've seen it before, it was I don't remember who it was that was playing. It's like they were playing Florida State to open the season, and I was like, this Florida State team is not that good, but they were like number 8 overall or something going into it might have been Alabama was playing them I think that's what it was. Alabama was playing them in the first week of the season, and it was when I can't remember the quarterback, Everett Golson. Wait, was that a Notre Dame guy? Shit, I can't remember now. No, he was a Notre Dame guy. Anyway, I don't remember who their quarterback was, but it was some like overhyped guy who wasn't that good. And that Florida State team ended up going 6-6 that year. But to start the season for that opening week matchup to create that hype, it was number 1 Alabama against number 5 or number 6 Florida State in, whatever, neutral site game it was to generate hype. Exactly.
Sells.
To generate money. So I think in a lot of senses, this kind of fits that mold. It's not hard to hype Notre Dame. It's not hard to hype Florida State. So they fit right into that, where all you have to do is put a number on Notre Dame. Oh, they're the number 5 team in the country. Well, they're good, and it's Notre Dame, and they were like a playoff contender last year. So why not? And then all of a sudden,
definitely.
You now you've built this hype machine up, and Ohio State's going to dog walk them by 3 touchdowns.
Yep. Yeah, no, that was going to be my theory too. I was going to say the same exact thing. It has to do with the hype, and it has to do with generating money, that TV money, getting that game to be your prime time week 1 matchup. I mean, you have to put Notre Dame at least top 10 at that point if you can sell it. If you can sell it with the team that they brought in, the coach that they have now, any transfers that came in, people that were sitting last year, starting this year, if you can sell it through the spring, might as well make them number 5, make it a top 5 matchup to open the college football season. That is where the hype will be. You guys are right for sure. With that being said, while we're talking about Ohio State, I'm just going to come out and say it. I got Ohio State winning the national championship this year. I think I mean, you have to say that they're going to have to match up with Alabama, I guess, is the smart way to bet it if you're going to bet it. So I'm going Ohio State over Bama for the chip. Mostly Ohio State winning it. I'm picking Alabama as the opponent just because of their track record. What do you guys think if we're going to put down a future today before the season officially gets underway?
I definitely agree. And if I can give you a little bit of data on Ohio State, I do this every year. The pivot point in college football is 28 points. So teams that score 28 or more tend to do pretty darn well, and some do exceptionally well. If you take the total of this game and the line, now at 17, it basically implies like a 39-21, 38-21 type of game, Ohio State win. So since 1989, Buckeyes are 165-0, straight up. 129-32 with 4 pushes for 80% against the spread in games that they score 37 or more points. Last 3 seasons, they're 25-0, 18-6 for 75%.
Oregon's defense isn't good enough to stop
fewer
them.
Points.
Yeah.
21 or fewer points, is what Notre Dame is. That's probably the team total. If the Buckeyes hold them to 21 or fewer in past games since 1989, 262-18 straight up, 181-94-7, 66% against the number. Last 3 seasons, they're 15-7 against the number and 22-0. You want me to keep going?
Bring it on.
By all means. Yeah.
And I don't see Notre Dame holding Ohio State to 37 points. I just don't.
No. Yeah, and I messed up. I said Oregon. I meant Notre Dame. Yeah, no, I don't see it either. I don't see Notre Dame holding them under 30 points. And 37. These things are always interesting. When you get late in a game, it could be something where they're, it's a 30-10 game and it's the fourth quarter and they just decide to kind of sit on it a little bit. I could see that, and them only getting like a field goal or two and ended up at 36. But, I think it's going to be one of those, like early on, Notre Dame might get a couple of shots in and you end up with some sort of, 24-14 at halftime or something like that. And then it's going to be, I think it's probably going to be in the 40s, and Notre Dame's going to still be sitting there around, 17 to 28 points. And that's where I think I had it 37-28 was my number for the tiebreaker that I picked.
Yeah, it's funny you picked 37 and then John hits us with those 37.
Right. That's what I was saying. Like, let me pull it up. I got to pull it up and see if that is.
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the exact score.
37-28.
That just lined up.
Yeah, 37-28 is my line. It's let's see.
One other angle here that's pretty cool is Notre Dame as a double-digit underdog and allowing 35 or more points since 1989. 0-8 straight up and against the spread.
Wow.
There you
Well,
go.
so but to AG's point though, where do you see Ohio State's trajectory for this season? Penn State
I
and
agree with what
Michigan
he
have
said.
enough to contend, or do you think that it's going to be an Ohio State Big Ten this year?
I definitely think they have enough to contend and then some. And I think they're probably the team that can take Alabama down. And I did some research on Nick Saban. He's had 3 years where he's lost 2 games. And for him, for that program, that's like Rutgers losing 11 games. It's just a horrid season in Tuscaloosa in the aftermath of a 2-loss season. He's 39-4 against the SEC opponents in the following year after a 2-loss season. So if you're on that schedule this year against Alabama, and I think that Texas A&M guy plays them, it's going to be hell to pay, and that history tells you that. So
the Texas A&M's in the West, and so we're still on the schedule where it's loaded. You play everybody in your division once, so they're going to get A&M, they're going to get LSU, they're going to get all those schools again. Auburn, now the Auburn game, that's going to be one where it's going to be interesting. I haven't looked to see. I could pull it up to see who else is on their schedule where there might be a potential for them to stub their toe. But yeah, I mean, I've heard and I've seen the stuff where this could be the Alabama revenge tour this year, and I get it, because that's just Saban is he's that much of an asshole, and he's that determined, So like he's just gonna take it out on it. It'll go beyond just beating you. It'll be embarrassing. But at the same time, like
overvalued, like you can't even believe too, and
you
just can't be tempted to try to fade it either.
Right. I made the prediction that Saban had already won his last national championship last year on this show, and I
remember that.
My temptation is to say, I mean, I can't find them on here, but anyway, my temptation is to say that they are going to go on that revenge tour and they are going to win. But then the other temptation I have is to fade them so that I can keep my prediction intact, because I don't want to lose that. Plus, I fucking hate Alabama, so like that's a really easy reason to root against them. But yeah, so they've got.
Well, it's funny that I'm picking Ohio State now that you mentioned that, because
right.
Obviously I don't want to do that, but
yeah.
I'm leaving my emotions at the door on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I still like Georgia. Alabama doesn't have to play Georgia. They play at Arkansas, and Arkansas right now is ranked number 19 in the country. I don't know. Like Arkansas is one of those. There are these teams in the SEC, and it's so funny because we make these jokes. We call Texas A&M Texas 8-4. Because that's just kind of how their season goes. There are teams like that, like Mississippi State, Arkansas, A&M is one of them. They're always just good enough to mess it up for somebody else, but they don't ever have what it takes to actually get the job done and win the SEC, even win the division and make it to the national championship tournament or the game itself. So I reserve judgment for Arkansas, A&M. Now, Jimbo Fisher could turn things around at A&M. I still think they're a little overhyped. But that's all that Saban's got on the schedule. Is he's got a road game at Texas, which that could be interesting. But that Texas team, I don't think has the bullets to overcome that. They've got Vanderbilt, Arkansas, A&M, Tennessee, Mississippi State, LSU, Ole Miss, Austin Peay, and Auburn. So this is what Saban does. He puts a bye week between himself and the LSU game, and then he puts another bye week with Austin Peay between himself and the Auburn game. So, and then you look at those other games, and it's like, man, Tennessee's not going to beat them. A&M, I very seriously doubt it that they're going to go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama after last year. Like, it's just I don't.
No way.
I don't see it happening. So I think this Alabama team could go undefeated in the regular season, but when you get to the tournament, and that's where you're going to have to face a Georgia and maybe even the SEC championship game. You have to face a Georgia, but you probably, if they do what they should do in the regular season, they're probably automatically in the playoff regardless. And I would say it's very possible that Georgia and Alabama could be playing each other in the SEC championship game with their tickets already punched for the playoff, where it doesn't even matter who wins that game, just like it was last year.
Yep.
But what I could also see is that's where an Ohio State is waiting in the wings, just lying in wait to pick them off in that playoff.
Yep.
And then they've still got to go for the rematch between the two of them, and if it gets there like it did last year. So
Yeah,
I think I like the money for Georgia or Ohio State, and I would actually take like a field bet against Alabama right now, just because I think it's decent money. I don't think it's a lock because it's fucking Saban, but I think it's good money.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow you up by saying I think Ohio State can go undefeated this year as well. It could end up, it could very well end up being Ohio State versus Bama for the championship, both undefeated. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, I think we're good for today for opening weekend. And we'll definitely be back throughout the football season. We'll be jumping on John's channels as well. John, shout out all of your work where you're working on gambling.com, your show, obviously. Tell everybody where they can go. We have your Twitter description in the box, so they can find everything else from your Twitter link in the description box. So,
yeah, that's true. You summed it up pretty well. PredictivePlaybook.com is the website. I have about 30 handicappers there too that are all seasoned professionals, and you can go over there and check it out. Of course, we'd appreciate it if you get on board with me. I am running a special for college football in the NFL that saves basically $800, and that's going to end on Thursday night at kickoff of the Penn State game. I'm just trying to get the information into people's hands. I feel like I'm 28 years into this, and not that I'm better than anybody else, but my track record's pretty darn good. And I want to share what I've learned. And you can do that by still paying your bills and reducing the cost of the subscription without, changing your lifestyle just to, start teaching. But one of the things I will mention real quick, Adam, is there's been 310 underdogs of 17.5 or more points that have won the game straight up. Every single year, my models come up with one. You never know when it's going to happen. But in the SEC, there's going to be a lot of those 17.5 point underdogs that are going to upset somebody. We had LSU go into Florida, a few years ago. They won. Texas A&M last year against Alabama. And this stuff happens. And it happens more frequently than people think. So, we're talking about Ohio State and Alabama right now, but there's always those strange games that come up, and maybe it doesn't affect either one of those teams, but it's going to affect somebody that's ranked
that's true.
Down the road. So just keep that in mind.
Yep. And John, I'm going to pat you on the back real quick because you left it out, but you called that win last year, that 17.5 dog, didn't you?
I think I was sitting with you at a sports bar somewhere, actually, over in Princeton, wasn't I?
Yes,
I think I was.
And he told me to put my money down, and whew, they won. I didn't believe it. I mean, I trusted him, but I didn't believe it. You know what I mean? I believed in him enough to put some money towards it.
Right.
But when it happened, I was like, oh, all right, John, I see.
Yeah, there's a difference between putting that money in and being like, this is a guaranteed win, and putting that money in and being like, you know what? I think I just lit this on fire. But if it turns into a phoenix, all the better.
Well, it was a little bit better than
was LSU, and I forget what year that was, but I was on a show, and it was against Florida, and LSU's getting 24.5 points. They're having a bad year, and I said, well, I'm going to take the points, and I think that's just too many at this point. Regression for Florida, and LSU's has the potential to play better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this other guest started giving me all kinds of grief, saying that I was an idiot. I didn't know what I was doing, and I said, all right. How about let's just go with the money line then for my best bet for the show. LSU money line. And you can look it up on YouTube. Wow. It's hysterical.
Was this 2 years ago, the 2020 season when
Yeah.
That
was it.
Yeah, we went into the swamp and beat them, and they were like, because we were like on our fourth quarterback or something like that at that point. I think Max Johnson, Brad Johnson's son.
I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, Max Johnson was like a freshman. And he was playing. He transferred now to Texas A&M to be a backup, which is kind of interesting. But I don't think he would have won this starting job anyway. It's Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels are kind of getting it. But yeah, that was a wild game, and that sort of thing happens. Like you said, it's those conference games, and I think we had one last year. AG, you and I put money on. We did like a whole parlay, and we missed. It was kind of stupid. We bet Iowa against Michigan. I think was one of the final ones that like really made the number big.
We had like a huge,
but it was huge.
Everything else hit.
We got everything but that one game.
But
we got everything but that one game, that one Iowa Michigan game. And but one of the games that we got right was Oklahoma State, and I don't remember who they were playing against, but it was like it was a money line game, and they tried to give it away. They like fumbled a punt inside the 20 and all kinds of stuff. But that shit happens, man. It was Oklahoma State. That's what it was. It was the backyard brawl. Or no, wait, that's West Virginia and Pittsburgh. What's the one called?
The backyard brawl is this
Bedlam.
is this
Bedlam
Thursday
is the
as
one.
well.
Yeah.
Bedlam is the one, the Oklahoma State one in Stillwater, or in Norman, whichever one. But so it was wild. But that kind of stuff happens. Those rivalry games, LSU and Florida have a long history. Another one that I'll say that with that brings to mind is LSU Auburn. We've had some crazy games. We had the earthquake game. We had the game where they lit the barn on fire off in the distance, and we ran back a 2-point conversion for 2 points, and all kind of crazy shit happens. It's just wild. And, there's your Alabama, Auburn stuff. Again, West Virginia, Pittsburgh, that's always one that you can just kind of throw. It's those games that they say, the cliche, you throw the records, aside, and you just let them go out there and play. It is literally a family reunion backyard brawl where there's going to be blood spilled. There's going to be some anger and some maybe even some punches thrown. And at the end of the day, when the dust settles, you might be super surprised at who wins.
Absolutely.
Hey, shout out to Faith Thomas real quick. There's definitely going to be a lot of SEC talk on this channel all football season. So definitely keep tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're here for you. All right. We're here for you. You can come talk with us every time we're live. And follow us on Twitter at Men of Order Media, TikTok, Instagram at the same names. Go ahead and follow John. He'll be talking a lot of SEC football in general, but SEC as well. We got your teams, USC and UCLA, joining the Big Ten, so that'll be interesting because me and John are over in Big Ten country. So, also shout out to Jimmy Das Hotep. We were hanging out with him out in Vegas a couple weeks ago. Great guy. Subscribe to menoforder.com. We Chad's been hooking it up with the emails lately, and every Tuesday and Friday, giving some good advice, good motivation for the weekend and to start your week on Tuesdays. So follow menoforder.com. Thank you, John, for coming on. We appreciate you as always.
My pleasure.
We'll be showing up on your show as well, and we'll schedule something for next week, hopefully for NFL and college football starting up next week.
Sounds great, man.
Peace.
All right, man. Peace. See y'all later.